Now that it is time to file your taxes and possibly get a tax refund, you need to begin thinking what you would do with that money. I know it's very common for people to take whatever money they get and go spend it on a new TV, a new gaming console, some new clothes, a new handbag, or something along those lines. But the thing is, that is the worst way you can use your tax return money. Just think about how many people are struggling financially, and when they get their tax return, instead of using it to help themselves, they go spend it on something they shouldn't, and then they are right back where they were before. And even though the temptation to go spend that money might be there, you need to think about how that money will benefit you the most. And believe me, it is not by spending it at the mall, on car parts, or on a vacation. And it doesn't matter if your tax return is a few $100s or a few $1,000s, because the things I will talk about will apply to anyone. So the first option, and probably the one that should be given priority, is setting up an emergency fund. It is estimated that about 40% of Americans cannot afford a $400 unexpected expense. And when people are living paycheck to paycheck and something comes up, they have no choice other than putting those expenses on a credit card or using other forms of debt. And if this was a one-time thing, then it won't be the end of the world. But what happens is that a $500 expense gets put on a credit card, and because people are already living paycheck to paycheck, they won't be paying off that credit card in full at the end of their billing cycle, but instead only making the minimum payments. So now it's going to take someone a year and a half to pay off that expense, and because life is life, there will be another expense down the line, and once again it gets put on a credit card and the debt just keeps on growing. And before they know it, they have thousands of dollars in credit card debt. Then if we look at everything that has happened recently, where the unemployment rate is at its highest it's been in a long time, and the fact that many people are seriously struggling to make ends meet, it reminds everyone why having an emergency fund is important. And then if you are someone who was employed by an airline, a hotel, or a restaurant, then you've probably been impacted by this more than many other people out there. And even if you are still employed, that doesn't mean you don't need an emergency fund, because you never know when you could lose your job, when you could get your hours cut, or when you could have a major expense come up. Now, depending on how much you get for your tax return, that will determine how much you can save. If you're getting less than $1,000, then you should consider saving all of that for a rainy day, especially if you don't already have some savings. Or if you are someone who is getting several $1,000s, then part of that money can go towards savings, and then the rest of it can be used for one of the other things I will mention. Now, the second option when it comes to investing your tax return is paying off high interest debt. And even though paying off debt might not be the first thing that comes to mind when you think of investing, paying off debt is actually one of the safest investments you can make, because you're guaranteed a specific return with basically zero risk. For example, let's say you owe $1,000 on a credit card that has a 20% interest rate. If you pay off that credit card, it's like you're earning a 20% return on your money. However, if you were to invest that same $1,000 into some stocks, there is a chance you can make a 30 or 50% return on your money, but you can't just as easily earn a 5% return, in which case you would have been better off using the money to pay off your debt because the return from doing that was higher. Then another way to look at this is that when you use your money to pay off $1,000 of credit card debt, you know you will get something in return of value, and in this case, every dollar that goes towards paying off debt means you have $1 less in debt. However, when you invest that money, you may invest $1,000, but you might only get back $500 because your investment goes down in value. The point I'm trying to make is that when you pay off debt, you have zero risk of losing that money, but when you invest, there's always a chance your investment goes down in value, and therefore you lose money. Plus, whenever you have any high interest debt, compound interest is working against you. I'm sure you've heard of compound interest and how it can help you increase your wealth by huge amounts over time, and how people like Warren Buffett have used the power of compound interest to make billions. And when compound interest is used for that, then it's great, but when you have high interest debt, then compound interest is working against you, because the longer you keep your debt, the more interest it accumulates, which means your debt is growing, and that's not what you want. Now, the only time when paying off debt might not be the best use of your money is when you only have low interest debt like a mortgage, because if your mortgage has an interest rate of 3%, then chances are you can get a higher return from other investments. So let's say you invested into a few different stocks and the return from those stocks is about 10%. Well, 3% would cover the interest on your mortgage, and the remaining 7% can be considered profit. However, just remember, there is always a risk that you can earn a lower return or even lose money. But the option of investing before paying off debt only applies when you have low interest debt. So if you have any high interest debt like credit card debt or a personal line of credit, you should always pay that first, then you can move on to investing. The third option you have for investing your tax return is investing in your career. Whether it's something simple like learning new communication skills, or it's something more advanced like becoming certified or getting a college degree, investing in your career will help you become more competitive when applying for jobs. You will be in a better position to negotiate a higher salary, and the chances you get laid off are less when compared to someone who has not invested in their career. Plus, if you ever need or want to find a new job, you will have an easier time doing that. Let's say you work as a nurse in a hospital and there are many patients who do not speak English. If you invested in learning a new language or becoming more fluent in a language other than English, then you could translate for patients or doctors, and then you become more valuable to the hospital and you will most likely earn more than other nurses who only speak English. For example, let's say there are two nurses who both have the same skills and same experience, but one only speaks English and is making $60,000 a year, and the second nurse speaks a second language and makes 5% more. Well, if you invested $1,000 in learning a new language, then you would be making an extra 5% or $3,000. So with some effort and the $1,000 investment, you tripled your initial investment in the first year alone. But the best part is, you will be making that extra 5% every single year from then on. Then another great example is if you work in some type of sales related profession. So now let's say you are a car salesman and someone walks onto the lot, but this person only speaks Spanish and you only speak English. Well, you're going to have a very hard time communicating with this person, and if you cannot communicate, you will not be getting that sale. But do you know who will be getting that sale? Yep, you guessed it, the person who speaks the customer's language. So the great thing about investing in your career is that you don't only benefit from things like becoming more competitive when applying for jobs, but you can also increase your income, and that can give you a rate of return that is much higher than what you would get by investing in stocks or a different investment. Now the fourth option you have for investing your tax return is investing in financial education. Like many others out there, I have witnessed many people living paycheck to paycheck and struggling to pay bills or make ends meet, and I knew that is not a position I wanted to be in. But the problem is, we might not know where to start, and this is where books can be life-changing. At one point, I knew nothing about personal finance, good money management, or investing because school does not teach you any of that, and I did not have anyone else to teach me. So it wasn't until I started reading books that it all came together for me. Now the reason I love reading books so much is that a $15 to $20 investment can continue to pay back for the rest of your life. If I would have never come across some of these books, I might be one of the many Americans living paycheck to paycheck, and it is because of reading these books that I began to take responsibility of my financial future. Plus, there's books on just about every single subject out there. So if you want to learn about budgeting and managing your finances, there's books for that. Or if you want to learn about investing in real estate or stocks, there's books for that too. Maybe you read a book on investing in stocks, and because of what you learned, you double your money instead of losing it all. In this case, a book can give you a return of 500 or 1000%, and the same applies to reading a book about real estate. Maybe you are looking to invest in some property, but you're not sure what are some major items you should be looking for. Well, by reading some books on the topic, you can learn what common mistakes other people have made, and you can avoid those mistakes, potentially saving you thousands. Now, obviously, you're not going to spend your entire tax return on books, but you can buy a few books and you can use the rest of the money to buy some online courses on personal finance, business, investing, or anything else that helps you become more financially educated. And whatever money you still have available, you can save it, use it to pay off debt, or anything else that benefits you. Now, the fifth option of how to invest your tax return is by investing into the stock market. Now, this option should only be considered once you have set up an emergency fund and paid off any high interest debt. And the reason is, those things are more important than investing when you're just starting off. The thing is, when you don't have any savings and you get laid off or you have a major expense come up, then you may have to sell your investments, and if those investments have increased in value, then selling them will not be the end of the world. But if you had to sell them during a time when the market is down, then there is a chance you sell them for less than you paid, and the whole purpose of investing is to make money, not lose it. And the same goes for paying off debt before investing. Even though there is a chance you could get returns of 30, 50, or 100%, you could also get returns of 5%, 1% or you could lose money. And at that point, you would have been better off paying down any high interest debt. So if you are at a point where you're ready to begin investing, then you have a couple of options of how you can invest in the stock market. The first option is investing in stocks that you research and pick. When it comes to investing in individual stocks, you want to make sure you're doing your research on that company and you're not just investing into that stock because a friend mentioned it to you. So that means going over their financial statements, doing research on the market that business operates in, researching any other businesses they may be competing with, and anything else that may impact how that stock does over time. Now, if you are someone who wants to benefit from investing in the stock market, but you don't have the time to research every single stock you are considering, then investing into an index fund like the S&P 500 might be best for you. And if you don't know what that is, basically, this is a fund that will combine your money with the money of other investors, and they will invest in the companies that make up the S&P 500. And because they are investing into many different stocks, the odds of you losing money is less than if you invested in individual stocks. Also, because the fund is the one who does all the investing into the various S&P 500 companies, all you have to do is make one investment and watch your money grow. So those are 5 ways you can invest your tax return. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it doesn't matter if your return is a few $100s or a few $1,000s. The things I discussed in this video apply to everyone. So if you enjoyed watching or you found any of this information helpful, it would really help me if you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.